Episode 33 of the Photon Podcast. Bruce is back, and we're going to talk about contesting coming up.
AmateurRadio15.com presents Photon, the other ham radio podcast, sponsored by Main Trading Company. Find them online at mtcradio.com. Now, here's your host, Cale Nelson, K4CDN.
Hey, yeah, it's Cale. What's up? K4CDN here, and thank you for tuning in to the 33rd episode of the Photon Podcast. The podcast that really wasn't supposed to be here 33 episodes later, but we're here, and we appreciate you being here. You know, there's a lot of you that have been here since day one, and a hat tip to you guys. Thank you so much for participating, being a part of the show, your encouraging words we get from you, your notes, your emails, your subscriptions. We got some great reviews on iTunes here recently, and appreciate all you guys doing that, as well as some new Twitter followers and Facebook friends. So thank you. Thank you for participating with us and being a part of what we're doing. And if you're new here, you have no idea what the Photon Podcast is. Well, outside of being a really bad name for an amateur radio podcast, it's the other ham radio podcast. And we're here for the new guy, and we're hoping to introduce you to some things about the hobby to kind of get you excited, to keep you excited if you're getting licensed now or you're studying for your test. We hope that what we're doing here will encourage you to continue in your hobby and enjoy it like I have and others have. We've got folks that have been amateurs for years that listen to the show. Folks who are not in amateur radio listen to the show and just coming into the hobby as well. So welcome back to you all. We appreciate you being here. We're going to continue with Bruce Jewett, Whiskey One Golf Quebec, from the last show where he talked about DXing. This time we're going to talk about contesting, and all that'll come up in just a couple of secs. But first, I got to let you know, this portion of the Photon Podcast is brought to you by ICOM America's ID880 dual-band D-Star mobile transceiver. The ID880 is a D-Star equipped 50-watt dual-band mobile transceiver featuring over 1,000 memory channels, an alphanumeric display, a wide receiver, multiple scan options, weather alert, and more. Right now, the ID880 is on sale at MTC Radio. That's right, for a limited time, on sale at mtcradio.com. Again, mtcradio.com. So, yeah, here we are. We're back with Bruce Jewett, Whiskey One Golf Quebec. And Bruce tells us that in addition to having some great downloads that I can see on my end from this previous show that we had Bruce on, Bruce, you also had some folks contact you and leave some comments with you about your appearance here on the program.
Yeah, I was quite surprised, and thank you again for having me on the show. After the DXing format that we did, a couple of weeks ago, I had 15 various emails, and it's easy to find me, W1GQ, and Google that, and you can find my email address. So if there's other questions that come up during this show or in the previous, send them my way. I'd love to respond.
Well, thank you for that, guys. And Bruce, thank you for that. And folks, thank you for letting Bruce know that you enjoyed hearing him on the show. He is a deep well of information, and we're going to get into that further today as we continue talking about DXing, but in a little different sense. We're going to talk about contesting. Bruce, we know that you moved where you lived to participate in a greater sense of contesting. Tell us a little bit about, like you did the last time, about DXing. Tell us about what is contesting. What is that term?
Well, contesting is one of making as many contacts as you possibly can, depending on what the rules are. There are certain contests that really center on DXing, CQ Worldwide, ARRL, DX contest. So those are as many contacts you can make around the globe on different bands and such. And then there's more local contesting, and there's QSO parties. New Hampshire, where I live, has a QSO party once a year, and that's working various states and racking up points that way. But contesting in its essence is all about working to the rules, as many contacts, either DX, states, or various flavors thereof.
I got you. Now, contesting is just another part of the hobby we enjoy. Not everybody's a contester. Not everybody's made to be a contester, but it's a lot of fun, and it really helps hone your skills making contacts, because it's not just your everyday 80 meters hanging out and talking about fried chicken. I mean, it's a lot of work in a lot of aspects.
Well, absolutely. And to your other point, some people don't like contesting, and I work quite a few contests, have for years and years. And there's a handful, or maybe it's larger than a handful, but there are people within the bands that feel it's a nuisance, and we're distracting from the good nature of ham radio, which is centers around rag chewing or having pleasurable conversations, and I respect that. I totally understand that. So one of the essence, I think, of contesting is really respecting the bands. There are parts of the bands where, frankly, I won't go, even if there's DX there or some contact I need because there's rag chewing going on and such. So I think one of the main messages I'd like to pass on to your listeners is that contesting, although you can get your heart rate up, it certainly can be a real challenge, and you kind of lose yourself in the moment. But respect on the bands is one of the paramount things.
Fantastic, and that's a great point to drive home. Probably 3 or 4 times during this conversation, and it goes both ways. There's a lot of guys out there that when they hear a contest start up, well, they're going to try to cause problems with the contest, and it's just one of those things. What was it? Turn the big dial. Just turn the big dial. Just grab the big knob and turn it. Go away. Don't fall into the trap. So, why would I want to be involved in a contest? What would make me want to do that outside of? Well, no, I'm just going to let you answer the question. You tell me why I want to be involved in contesting.
Well, to my earlier podcast, which centered around DXing, it's a great way to work DX contacts and really drive up your points. If you're, or contacts or countries, if you want to chase all band DXCC, a great place to get started is in a DX contest. It gives you 48 hours of just a huge quantity of DX on the bands. And you got to work it. There's some challenges associated with it, but it's a great way to work DXCC. If you're a serious contester with a multi station, you'll run DXCC within the first 24 hours of the contest. So you can get to 100 countries, which is the classification for the beginning of a DXCC. You can get that going in a pretty rapid way. So if you're a beginner and you want to really challenge yourself to work a set of countries and really start moving yourself into a DXCC kind of a situation, a DX contest is great. The other side of it, and what really gets my attention to contesting, is this sheer challenge of it all. And I run a station that is, I've run multi with groups of people, great camaraderie, great association with a wonderful set of hams. And I do single ops, which is just me sitting in the station for 48 hours. The challenge of it is what really I enjoy. How many, the DXCC, I'm sorry, the CQ Worldwide is 48 hours. Staying awake for 30 hours of that, or working into certain parts of the world on 160 at Sunrise or Gray Line, to me that is just nothing but fun. And so that's why I do it. I just get the sheer joy of it.
Fantastic. And a lot of people, my wife wouldn't understand that, and there are probably some hams that wouldn't understand it. It's just not what they're, what they're interested in, what they're looking to do. But what little time I've had when contests come around and I'd get on the air, it's always a lot of fun to me personally. Just to say, hey, wow, they can hear me, I can hear them. I think I can make that contact and snag something I've never snagged before. And you're right. I mean, not even competitively being involved in it, just listening to it will get your heart rate going, man, because it gets crazy out there sometimes.
Oh, it's crazy and crazy fun for me.
Yeah.
As I mentioned to your listeners before, my preferred mode is CW, and sitting running on CW 10 meters when it's red hot, and working 3 or 4 stations per minute, just that rapid fire when the contest first begins. I have to say, there's just your adrenaline's pumping, your head's running, and it's just a fun time. So enjoy it.
Now, we talked just a few minutes ago about the different types of contests out there, whether it's the DX contest, whether it's a QSO party in a state. Field day could even almost halfway be a contest, but it don't count for anything, but it's a lot of fun. I guess you could practice for contesting there. Are there any other types of contests that we might not have spoken about either this time or the previous time?
Well, there is almost an endless list of contests. Certainly, contest.com. There's certain websites where you can go to see what's being presented in a particular weekend. But to your earlier question, field day is, or comment, I should say, a field day. I'm a serious DXer, a serious contester, and I love field day. It is one of those contests. And I view it as, I know it's preparedness. I understand it's out in the field. I certainly have worked it since 1970, so I certainly a number of times doing it. But I just think that whole concept of working various states, different people, being patient with very young people. I get just nothing of a joy of hearing a very young voice on the bands, because that was me at one time.
Yeah.
And I just remember how people were treated me. Some not too good, some pretty darn kind and gentle. But I just find that to be an environment where I get just thorough joy out of being on the bands. Now, I've run serious contests, multi, where I'm really going for rates. I'm really going for scores and awards. But I'd say probably in the last 3 or 4 years, I don't do it for that. I just do it for the sheer joy of working many a station, seeing, challenging myself on bands, staying awake, just driving certain parts of the world when it comes to contests. So, to me, it's moved into, instead of paper on the wall, to just sheer joy. And that's why I look at Field Day or some of these obscure contests. I work those as well. Again, I encourage your listeners to go to contest.com. I'm sure there's other sites. That's the one I go to, though. And there's every weekend, there's got to be a contest someplace on planet Earth, whether it be the Bulgaria DX contest, the Russian CW contest, Earth, Moon, Earth, the EME contest, 10 gigahertz contest. There's a contest all the time.
Let me ask you this. I just knocked my mic off the deal almost. Let me ask you this. Like when the guys go up and activate the summits on the air, they like to have people listening so that their activation counts for something. The guys at home listening want someone to activate the summit so that they can get points for getting the summit. Is it kind of the same thing now where you're at in your contesting mind? Is you're out there to enjoy it as much for your fun as it is to help the contest continue on?
Well, absolutely, yes. And there's another aspect of contesting. I'm kind of jumping around here a little bit, but the DX clusters, and we talked about that before with the DX, and monitor the DX clusters to see who's on, and certainly a good way to work various parts of the world and drive up your DXCC count. Contesting is the same way. My book, and this is me speaking. Any contact, if I'm working, I will post on the cluster for others to know where that contact is. And I will say a multi station will live on DX cluster to understand where the propagation is going, who's on, if there's some multiplier, and I'll talk about multipliers in a minute here, but if there's a multiplier on where that person is so they can work them. So that, I think, is part of giving back, right? If you work a station, post it out on the DX cluster, it just takes a keystroke, and others know that contact is there. And that's sharing of the information, which allows other people to drive up their count, and they could be competing against you. So, right. But that's the spirit of the hobby. That's the spirit of contesting.
And we spoke about the spirit before we come on the air of just how wonderful, by and large, the amateurs are, and this is just another way. And Bruce coming in here with us, educating us. We again thank you for being with us. We're talking to Bruce Jewett. His call is Whiskey 1 Golf Quebec. And we're discussing DX this time. I'm sorry, contesting this time. We had him on for DX the last time. I didn't come out right. But, hey, we're talking about this contesting. Tell us a little bit about how it works, Bruce. How do we have to sign up for something, or we just find out the rules and jump on the air?
Find out the rules, jump on the air is the best way to go. But also decide what you want to do. If your goal is to work QSO party in the state of New Hampshire, and that seems like a good environment to just want to work different stations, either stateside or DX. That's great. If you want to maybe get into DXing and to drive up your DXCC count, look at CQ World at ARRL. Again, there's so many contests out there. I personally spend most of my time DXCC, CQ Worldwide or ARRL. Those are the two contests that I enjoy. Field Day is another one.
Okay. And now a lot of people don't understand this, but there's usually an exchange that every different contest, or even just a net for that matter, they normally follow some sort of regularized exchange that works with that particular contest. Explain to us a little bit about what the exchange is. To me, it's like a handshake. But can you tell us in your terms what the exchange would be?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So there's various flavors. Certainly for CQ Worldwide or ARRL. CQ Worldwide, it's 595 or 5995, of course, your RST and then your particular zone. For ARRL, it's 59 and then your state, or if you're DX, it's power. So every one of these contests has a little different twist on it. And again, the rules are always encouraged before you jump on, but every contest has a little nuance to it, and I would encourage your listeners to whatever that one that catches your fancy to understand the rules, because it's out of respect for the others who are contesting, right? So if you're going to be on the bands working them, and I'm guilty of this as well. I like to be served. I know that sounds kind of weird, but if I'm working a contest and I'm working 3 or 4 QSOs per minute in CW, it takes me out of my rhythm. It takes me out of my thought process when someone's starting to ask me, what contest are you in, when it's CQ Worldwide? You just know what is around you, because that's out of respect for the contester. The other thing I kind of glossed over, but there are different contests. There's a sprint contest, which I believe they're 3 hours long. So if you're not into a 24 or 48-hour contest, they have these things called sprint, which are CW or phone. They're kind of cute the way they're formatted. You work a station and then you QSY to another, just another part of the band. It's a nice way to kind of get a little taste of contesting. There's sweepstakes. If I'm not mistaken, sweepstakes is the oldest contest. It was set up by the ARRL. There's a very unique exchange for that, and people thoroughly enjoy that. I've worked that several times myself. There is just, like I said, there's no end to the list of flavors of contests.
Yeah, and I mean, some of them are CW only, some of them are voice only, some of them are PSK 31 or RTTY. I mean, and some of them are just whatever you can fit in, just go, right?
Just go, yeah. I just seem to gravitate toward the CW parts or CW contests. So again, my two big ones are ARRL DX and CQ Worldwide DX CW.
You're talking about gaining points. You're talking about moving up in ranking and whatnot. Explain to me scoring for something like this.
Yeah, so scoring is you get the fundamentals are for CQ Worldwide is how many QSOs, and then you have a multiplier time, and that's just a simple straight math, right? I mean, so it's all these contests have different ways they score, but it's the fundamentals of my book when I'm working a contest are I need to work as many people as I possibly can in as many unique either countries or multipliers, what they're called. It's just a multiplication, and you get to the answer. Field day is, that's quite simple. It's right. How many contacts times some multiplier for the power level you're running, and so But all of those are just pretty much just straight math. But again, when I get on the bands, I think of two things fundamentally, and I just stay in that zone pretty much for the 48 hours. Is how many contacts can I work, and if there's something unique. Yeah, because a multiplier is a big deal. If you're running a contest and you get to a new country, which is considered a multiplier, that'll multiply your entire score. So it's a huge thing to focus on that.
Wow. Now, I understand not all the bands are available to be contested on. Is that correct?
Oh, that's absolutely correct. The WARC bands, 18, 24, and 10, are off limits for contesting. And there are times I wish those bands were a part of contests, and I'm sure there's a set of people that would disagree with that firmly. But the propagation of those bands can be quite interesting. Certainly 18 when the sunspot cycle is maybe on its decline. But those WARC bands are not permitted for contesting.
Very good, very good. Now we know that you have a a contesting station. Is that required to be a contester? I mean, this is just like the question we asked last week. We're going to ask it again. Is that required? Is a big monster station required for contesting? I know it's going to help, but do you have to have something huge to get started?
No. I mean, to your comment, right? In contesting, if you're going to take it seriously and really compete, because there are some monster stations out there. But if you're going to do it for fun or just drive up some QSO count or DXCC count, no, you don't need a big station. I worked contesting in Southern California and Palos Verdes with just an awful station, but had a lot of fun doing that. But if you're going to compete, you're going to be competing against people who have stations that are serious, and you want to take a look at your equipment. But to have fun, no, nothing fancy is needed.
We're going to go back to the same answer again, but I'm going to ask a question. What's more important with a contest station, the radio, the amplifier, if you have one, or the antenna?
Oh, I'm an antenna guy. There's no doubt about that. It's certainly for serious contesters. I'd encourage your listeners to maybe Google K3LR, W3LPL. There is no lack of aluminum in the air.
Oh my goodness!
And there is. I have done the same. Not to that level. I don't want to paint that picture, but I certainly believe in the way they do, which is put a lot of aluminum in the air, stack Yagis, a lot of phasing of antennas, because to me that's where your gains will be.
I got you. Yeah, I know a lot of guys, man. Especially coming into the hobby, they see things. They see these radios that are high power, or I got to get an amp, or I need a bigger radio, and they've got just an 80-meter wire antenna in their yard. Not that won't work, but I mean, if you're going to spend your money, start on the opposite end of the radio, I would say, and work back to the rig. Would that be a good way to look at things?
Yeah, I kind of jump around a little bit. I think antenna up in the air, absolutely. Put some decent transmission line to it, RG8 or something. Then work back into the radio, and then take a look at the amplifier, and then go the other direction. Start putting some decent coax. I run hardline, 7/8 hardline. I have some bigger stuff than that on 10 meters. But you just start looking at optimizing every element of it. And if you go look at some of these serious stations that have optimized, everything is taken care of. Everything from the antenna to the transmission line, to the amplifiers, to the radios, to the computer that's driving a lot of the communication among multi against other within your station, outside your station. It just seems like there's an endless loop of things you can do.
It's kind of like women, they buy a pair of earrings and then have to have a dress to go with the earrings, and then
then you need a new car because you can't.
You can't drive that to church, man. It doesn't match the earrings we started with. Yeah.
I've gone that loop. I can't tell you how many times, and I keep saying I'm going to stop, and I never do.
Well, it's okay. It's just part of first world problems, I guess, we suffer from here. Hey, we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. We'll continue on with Bruce Jewett. He is Whiskey One Golf Quebec. We're learning about contesting this time through on the Photime Podcast. Back in a sec.
Main Trading Company in Paris, Texas is still one of the small town stores. Give us a call. You'll get a real person on the phone. Richard, myself, Christine, Tammy, or Danielle. We're there to help you find the gear you're looking for. We carry brands like ICOM, Kenwood, products from Roan Tower, Heil, LDG, Alinco, Jetstream, Radio Waves, MFJ. The list goes on and on. 903-737-0773 and on the web at mtcradio.com.
This portion of the Photime Podcast is brought to you by Kenwood USA's TS480. It's an HF and 6-meter transceiver with a built-in tuner. It also works all modes at 100 watts. Tailor-made for DXing, the TS480 transceiver raises the bar on portable ops, and it's on sale now at mtcradio.com. Grab your new TS480 SAT from mtcradio.com. Back with Bruce Jewett, Whiskey One Golf Quebec, here on the Photime Podcast. I am Kel, your host, K4CDN, and we're learning about contesting this time through on the podcast. We, again, thank you, Bruce, for being on here with us. And I want to go back real quick. Right before the break, we were talking about equipment. We were talking about, do we have to have a big station? Can we get by with a modest rig and whatnot? Do the radios really make a difference? But what about you touched on it just very briefly in one of your replies about computers and whatnot for your station. What are some accessories that we would need to kick off our contesting here in the hobby?
Well, first is if you're going to, the computer. I mean, obviously it's touched every phase of our life. I did contesting when everything was paper and you had dupe sheets and you had big erasers and a pencil sharpener. That's the way I started contesting, and it was a lot of fun. You couldn't work the rates that you could now because everything was a manual process. But computers is certainly is another area where contesting has benefited by it. And so when I look at a multi station, which let me explain a couple things here. One is a single operator is just one person sitting in front of a radio, working various bands. And again, there's rules. So you can only change frequencies so many times per 10 minutes and such. There's multi-single, which is multiple people in one radio, and you do shifts. So you kind of keep the bands alive. So you definitely are going in and out. You're taking breaks and such. There's multi, which is, you've got as many people, probably 2 people per band. So you have, and I'll talk about this in a minute, but running or search and pound stations. There's multi-2. There's all these different ways of doing it. But no matter what mode what type of contest you want to run, multi and such, the computer will touch all of it. Mm-hmm. Why it's important for multi is every station will have a computer that's sitting on, connected to your radio, connected to the DX cluster, and sending messages back and forth to each other. When you look at running multi, if you're on 10 meters and you need this particular country on 15 meters, you'll send a note to the 15-meter station, and then you'll ask that person on the band, will you work us on 15 meters and try to move that multiplier, that DX station, to 15 meters. And all that interconnection, all that communication is taking place with a network and computerized. The other thing is if you are going to run voice, CW for sure too, but if you're going to run voice, I strongly encourage to have a voice keyer. Because there's just no way that you can. Well, I've done it, but so there is a way, but it's just painful to sit on the bench for 48 hours if that's what your choice is, and work people. Your voice will give, and so the computer has touched. Again, it's touched our lives in so many ways, but it's also touched contesting as well. So electronic keying, electronic voice transmission, networking, radio control, clusters, so you're understanding where other things, watching the map to see where the gray lines are. It's almost endless what it's doing for you.
Let me ask you real quick, because I can see someone in the back of the classroom here raising their hand. Their question is, this multi you're talking about, are you guys all in the same shack? Are you spread out? How does that work for you guys up there when you're running a multi contest?
So, yeah, good question. I've done both, and maybe the rules are. I believe it's been a while since I've done this, but I believe it's 1,000. If you take a circle, I think it's 1,000 feet. I could have this wrong. So let me answer your question. So yes, you can all be in the same shack, but that's a big shack, right?
Yeah.
And there's stations for running, there's station for search and pound, so that's 2 people per band usually. And then you have someone cooking and someone feeding you coffee and that kind of stuff. It can be it could be 15 people, if not more, participating. And K3LR is he's the top multi station on planet Earth right now. He leads in so many different ways. Great guy, by the way, just a super person. But there's just no end to the size of the quantity of the people and the size of the station. But to your other question, are they all here? So I ran multi for a number of years with a station. When I moved to New Hampshire, there happened to be a ham operator, contester, that was within the rules of working as one station. And so we built a little data link between our 2 homes, so we could be networked, and we had a high-speed network between our 2 houses, and it was qualified as a one-station operation. and he had 5 or 6 people in his shack, and he picked 2 or 3 bands. I had 2 or 3 bands, and I had 5 or 6 people in my shack, considered as one. But there are distance rules. You cannot have someone beyond this circle, and I believe it was 1,000 feet or yards. I forget.
Man, that's serious. That's some serious. You're running data links between homes. This was probably before networking like we have it nowadays.
It was. This was 10 years ago, and it was. And I built a little microwave link. I'm an RF microwave engineer, so I built a little data link, and it would crap out in the middle of the contest, and I'd have to get off the band to get it alive again. And yeah, if we were to do this again, I run single op now, but if we were to have this multi between our 2 stations, the technology, I mean, you can get a link to this router and kind of modify it and make a data link out of it and be good to go forever. You have 10 of them up on the air for about $100. This was pre that, so it was a little goofy the way I did it, but it worked, and we'd limp through and keep the data link alive.
And you didn't tear up your wife's flower beds running fiber between the 2. You did it RF.
I did it RF. I probably should have put something. Yeah, talking about wives and this other fellow, I'll keep his name off the table out of respect for him, but he great guy, by the way. I don't want to paint any pictures here that are wrong, but both our complaints were, you better have a pretty understanding wife. So nothing like having 10 sweaty dudes at your house. And I had my children were they've moved on to college and beyond, but at that time I remember my wife was cooking breakfast for these guys, making coffee, and I thought, what a sweet woman, but boy, I caught it at the other side of that.
She was smiling on the outside but burning on the inside.
She's like, who are these people? And one of the lessons that I took, and I do work other stations as an operator, when you go to someone else's house, it's a gift. I had one operator, asking for more coffee and more, can you cook me some more eggs, to my wife, and I don't do that, right?
Yeah, this isn't a Waffle House, bud.
No, you're not paying for anything. Right? It's all going the other direction.
Wow. That's pretty serious, though. I mean, 10, 15, 20 people running a station, and there's no wonder folks that can do that are leading the world in the points. I mean, that's out there, man.
There is some. And the nice part about living in New Hampshire, there are some, or the Northeast in general, but there's some wonderful stations just around me. I could probably take my bicycle and ride to it. Is K1AR, K1DG. I mean, these are fellows who are just very serious at contesting. K1AR wrote for CQ magazine for a number of years, the contest section. His brother-in-law, Doug, K1DG. So I came to the Northeast from Southern California, and just the community of DXers, the community of contesting here in the Northeast is great. Another big one is KC1XX. So there are some really big time stations up here in the Northeast, which is good because there's a lot of cool people and I get to network with them. It can be bad because when you're on the bands, we're all working it, and they run in some stations, and so am I, and so we run into each other once in a while. So we know how to respect that and kind of move around each other.
Which brings me to my next question: is it due to the fact that the area is such a small area up there? You're just more compressed, and that means the people are closer together. So the big DXers just happen to live closer to one another, or is it? I mean, because California is a lot bigger than New Hampshire.
Yeah, but I can't answer that. I don't know answer that question, because if you look at just pure geography, and it's coincidental maybe more than anything else, just in the New Hampshire, there's just a lot of serious hams. But then if you look at the top contesters, the two is K3LR, and he's in Pennsylvania on the western side of Pennsylvania, right on the border of Ohio. And then you look at W3 LPL, who's down south, and I think he's in the just outside of the D.C. area, and just in the Northeast. But if you're going to be a serious DX or a DX contester, living up in the Northeast is the best, because if you look at what you want to accomplish, which is work as many DX contests as you possibly can, you're sitting right on the doorway into Europe. and into Russia and eastern side of Europe. So it has the highest probabilities of just hitting all those different parts of the world, so you can drive your count up in a very rapid way.
Well, it worked for the Pilgrims, and it's working for the DXers up there.
A few hundred years apart, but absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so let's continue on about this contesting thing. Got a little off there, but I just had some questions, man. Thank you for answering those. Training. Can you train? I mean, people train for everything. Can you train for contesting on amateur radio?
Absolutely. And I do. And I've been contesting, and I'm a very serious CW operator. But there's CW trainers. It's called Morris Runner. I can provide it to you, and you can post it on your site for the website. But it is it can simulate a contest, and and I do it every contest season. Season meaning as you start into the fall winters when the DX contests begin. Mm-hmm. I will sit for weeks in front of that, probably 4 or 5 weeks, training myself, getting my skills back to where they need to be. And because again, CW for me is a preferred mode. I can really, I can be one of the top CW guys. I mean, I really know how to, work QSOs fast. So Morris Runner provides you with your computer. It's a computer program for sure, but it provides you with an environment that sounds just like a contest. And what I mean by that, you have these little buttons where you can set up QSB, QRM. How many people do you want to come back to you at a particular time? Do you want 10 people to answer your CW? So it adds that confusion factor. So this whole environment can be set up, simulated, and it really piques your hearing. Because again, as I said to you in the DX session a few weeks ago, your ear is a wonderful instrument, and it has to parse out these different tones in order to work the stations. Well, that's something you train for, and this Morris Runner provides that environment. And if I'm on an airplane between Boston and San Francisco, I'll put on the headphones, and I'll spend an hour just completely confusing myself to try to build those skills on how to parse out those stations and log them.
So our listeners that are, like Call of Duty guys, they've got nothing on you. I mean, they've got nothing.
Yeah,
I'm going to make my nephew listen to this one for sure.
There you go.
Yeah. The closest I've ever gotten to something like that was a CW trainer that I found. And you could bring in noise, you could up the noise level, you could bring in, the QRM and kind of really make it sound nasty. But I just thought that was for learning CW. I didn't know that they had training devices. That's really interesting. Really interesting. And
they look just like a logging program to what you'd use in the contest. So not only are you training yourself to hear, and pull out these CW stations, it looks just like a logging program. So you log them just as you would in a contest. So you get that hearing. And the neat part about this is just such a strange thing to talk about, but I could actually go through a contest and I'll spend an hour or two and not know what I worked. You hear it and you type it. You hear it and you type it. And after a while, you kind of lose track on who these people are. It's kind of a strange transition your brain will go through. But you want to get to that point because you don't have to think about this stuff too much because you're running so fast. Running meaning you're working stations so fast. And that logging program, Morris Runner, will help you develop those skills.
It's a good thing you've got the dupe button on there too, right? So you don't just keep chasing the same guy over and over.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we've talked about contesting software, training software. What about contesting clubs? I know that some of those exist.
Yes, and I'd encourage it. If you're a new contester, seek out the local club. Here in the Northeast, we have what we call the Yankee Clipper Club, YCCC. I'm not exactly sure of the heritage, why that name came to being, but it's a local club. It started back in the mid to late 70s. Some of the top DXers here in the Northeast, K1DG, K1AR, some of these guys were the kind of the founding team. Again, I don't know all the heritage of it, but when I first moved to the Northeast and from Southern California, I didn't know the environment at all. I didn't know who was here. I didn't know, who these people were. So I went to the club and got to know them. I'm not very much of a participant now. mainly the most of these are held on weekends and such, and it seems like I've got the honeydew list that's endless. So I always seem to find that to be a priority for good reason. But I would encourage your listeners to Google it, find the local club. When I walked in, there was probably 50 people, and they welcomed me with open arms. I'll never forget it too, because I'm new to living in the Northeast and walked in cold, and they were very helpful, very kind.
Is contesting something you can do casually? I mean, can you enjoy it that way, or is it just going to bite you and it's going to take you down a long, dark road?
It bit me, so I could speak only to myself. It just got me and got me in a big way. But I see people that do it very casually. They will spend an hour on a Saturday in one of the contests and just go off and play golf or whatever else their passions and joys are. And that's fine. But by the way, I encourage anyone to participate, because if you're a serious DXer, you're going to work all the stations that are serious on the band. So when I think of CQ Worldwide, I'll work all the serious guys because they're going to be there 48 hours and I'll work them. But what you really are looking for is the casual operator, because that you need to work every one of the casual operators. Casual meaning they'll be on the bands for an hour on a Saturday, maybe Saturday night, Sunday at 3, and then that's it. And you need to work those men and women, because if you do, that gives you the advantage over the other people that you may be competing against. Right. So I'd encourage your listeners, spend 20 minutes on a Saturday, even if, and I'm guilty of this, I'll run pretty hard at 32, 35 words per minute, because I'm just really comfortable at that speed. But if I hear someone coming in at 5 words a minute, I'll gladly slow down and work that person at 5 words per minute, because I know that is a casual operator, and that contact is important to me. And so even if you feel intimidated because someone's really grinding through at a fast speed, try and work them. They're more than happy to work you. There's no ego in my book. There may be some people, I don't know them, but it's always good to work them. Even on CW and voice. Voice can be intimidating too, because you get a good rhythm going and you get a lot of people going. Work them. Even if you stumble a little bit, it doesn't matter.
Now, we touched a few minutes ago on logging, and you're doing that through your computer with the your radio cat control, whatever we're going to call it. What are some different ways we can do logging for the contesting?
So any contest probably has a associated logging program associated with it. So there's a couple that I've used over the years. K1EA, who's another person up here in the Northeast, back in the 80s, mid-80s, 85 I think it was, somewhere around there, wrote a logging program called CT. It was really the first, I don't know if commercial, I guess he sold it, so yes, it was commercial, available software program, ran on DOS. I used it. It really, what I would consider was the secret weapon. I think that's what they even called it at the time, for contesting, because before CT, which was written by K1EA, everything was done with pencil and paper. So this is the first time that you're able to actually log contacts, see if you had a multi, see who's working on what parts of the band, look for dupes real time. But if you're going to work a contest, look for a logging program for that particular contest. CT was good for CQ Worldwide, ARRL, and a whole host of other contests. There's another program out there that has come on the scene, and that's N1MM, which has it's free, it's shareware, but it is excellent. And I would encourage your listeners, and I think he's got a particular contest or setup for every contest that's ever been done. So anything that you may want to do, whether it be Field Day, CQ Worldwide, sweepstakes, there's a particular format for that within N1MM.
Cool. Now, what is excuse me? We talked about the DX cluster the last time we were on together. I know that it's important chasing DX. I would imagine it's far more important on contesting. Is that a correct assumption?
Oh, it's huge. It is, but also this is where the rules come into play. There's you can use the cluster and that qualifies you or puts you into a category. you could turn it off and not have DXC or the DX cluster, and that puts you in a different category. Again, all the rules are a little different depending on what contest you happen to be running, but if you're a multi-station and it's all about working as many and as broad as you can, broad meaning as many multipliers, as many countries as you possibly can, the DX cluster can be an asset. But they came up a while ago with the category that just turn it off, don't use it. And then, it's all on you, right? As a station, you work everything you hear and instead of looking at the screen. I've gone both ways, kind of my preference. Maybe it's just because I'm a little lazy. I like turning on the DX cluster, and so I fall into that category.
What's a skimmer?
Skimmer is some new technology that's looking at the broadband radios that look the entire spectrum. CW is primarily, and there's some new skimmers for RTTY as well, for RTTY, but it looks at the broad spectrum and pulls out through a set of algorithms the various stations. So it's interesting. There's a couple of websites that I'll pass along. You can post them, but you can send CQ your call letters, and you can look and see what parts of the world you're lighting up. So if I sent CQ to, I could go on this particular website and see if I'm hitting Europe, if I'm hitting Asia and such. But people have these broadband radios, one per band, and they look across the spectrum, and they're able to, through algorithms, post the various stations that are working that those radios will hear. And there's a whole network of these around planet Earth, and you can see where your radio or where you're transmitting into, see where the propagation is. But also it provides you with information on who's working what parts of the world. It also tells you, okay, there's a JA3 on this particular frequency. So it's a way to monitor the entire bands. It's really transformed the way that contesting is done. Again, there's various categories where you can use skimmers, not use skimmers, use DXC clusters and such. But again, those are all set up by the rules.
It's pretty interesting. Now, casual guy, Saturday afternoon, he's bored, the wife's at the mall, contest is happening. What's the best way? Does he just need to come in here, find a frequency and sit there, or should he just tune around? What's going to be best for him?
Well, there's really two types of approaches. One is sit there and call CQ and go for it. They call that the run station. If you're looking at from a multi-station, so you have multiple operators, you call that the run station. That person is going to sit on 14003 for 48 hours and call CQ and work stations. He's running. That's all that person is going to do. I've done it. It has its thrills to it. It can be tiring at 3 a.m. when no one's coming back to you. All you're doing is sitting there. But that's called the run station. There's search and pounce station. That person is going up and down the bands. Either if they're going to use cluster as part of the strategy or part of the contest rules, they'll look at what's happening on the cluster. They'll look for those stations. They'll work them. So that's called search and pounce. So you're searching for a particular station, and you're pouncing on that station. You're working it. Now, there's a rule that's fundamental to all contests that I'm aware of. That is, you cannot have two transmitters on the band at a particular time. That's just a rule. You cannot do that. So what you do is you have interlock. So when I ran multi, I made sure that both transmitters could not be transmitting at the same time. That creates all sorts of havoc for your radios and such. You got to make sure. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into multi stations, so you're not killing your your receivers, etc. But so what happens is the search and pounce and the run station, they got to know each other's style and the way they approach the contest, because they got to be able to kind of get into a rhythm where this person's got to stop running stations for a couple of seconds while a search and pounce station pulls up another station.
It's a lot more to it than just 10 guys sitting around drinking coffee.
It is, and that's why these the big boys, and I call them that, the K3LRs and such, they get a group of people. I think one of the qualities, maybe a little off track what you're asking, but one of the qualities of a host, so the person who really owns that station, like K3LR, is the the way they treat these contesters as they come into their home. I realize that you have someone coming into your house, they're going to devote 48 hours to your equipment and help you win a contest. But it's also very important to have consistency with these people coming into your home year after year, because they get this camaraderie, this rhythm, they understand each other, and they kind of work as a collective team. And it's very important for these hosts, like K3LR, to provide an environment that's enjoyable. I worked a contest one time where I thought that I was in a very strict militaristic environment, and that did not provide any joy to me, and I never went back. So it's you need to get a team that works collaboratively together, and the only way you can do that is just getting to know each other and understanding each other's ways of doing it, and being consistent over the years.
We've talked a lot about making contacts. I mean, that's what we're talking about, is contesting to make contacts. Do I send QSL cards or EQSL or Logbook of the World for these contacts I'm making during a contest?
I would. I dump my into Logbook of the World after every contest, my entire log, and I consistently do that because if your goal as a contester is to work DXCC in various bands, various modes, which a lot of people do, you want to be able to get that that credit for doing that. So I use Logbook of the World. I don't send out QSL cards because I'll work 3,000-4,000 stations in a weekend. I go broke doing it.
Yeah.
But if someone sends me a QSL card, I'll respond. Because if someone needs New Hampshire for their DXCC, if they're sitting in Zimbabwe or Japan or wherever it may be, I'll respect that and I'll send a QSL card back. So I have a stack of them. After every contest, I'm always amazed how many QSL cards I get. By countries, I wouldn't think New Hampshire's that difficult of a state. Because if you're a DXer, a lot of what you're looking at too is not only they're looking at DXCC, but they're also working states, right? All states and so they'll look for New Hampshire to fill out their worked all states if they're in Europe and some place on planet Earth. Mm. So it's kind of it goes both ways.
Of course, we're a new guy show here. So what are some of the contests that a new guy could probably come into and have fun and not just be overwhelmed? Are there some better than others and more catered to a new guy?
If I were brand new, and I did this, so maybe I'm just a little biased this way, I would seek out a field day contest. And I know they consider that more of a preparedness kind of a thing, but that's that camaraderie. It's usually a very casual environment. I would look for a field day. I think another place I would look for is sweepstakes. I think that's one that would be interesting. Although I'd encourage your listeners to just jump right in. And I know I say that with some bias, and I've been doing this for a number of years, but just spend a half hour, an hour on a Saturday and just work. If you're here in the Northeast or down south, wherever it may be, work some DX. Everybody's happy to work you. I know it may not sound like it, and I'm guilty of that too, because I'll sit there at 35 words per minute sitting in CQ, and people are probably thinking, my gosh, I'm not going to work that guy.
Yeah.
But the reason I do that speed, frankly, is there's a lot of great CW operators on there, and I get into a rhythm, and I like it. But I'll slow it right down. I have no problem doing that. So I think any contest is worth giving a shot. Give it a shot, and if you like it, keep going. If you don't, well, plenty of other different interesting things to do in ham radio.
Yeah, you just get the exchange. What do we go back? Listen, and listen again. Get the exchange. Follow the rules.
Get the exchange. Yeah, read the rules. Listen. Kind of hear what the rhythm is. Because there is a rhythm. I know when you're new to the radio and contesting, you probably can't believe there's actually a rhythm. But there is a real center or a real way that you like to be called and when to call and when not to call, and you can hear that and try to fit right in, and it can be a great experience.
Bruce, before we let you go, any parting advice, anything you want to leave with the folks coming into the hobby, recently licensed, recently deciding they want to try contesting after listening to these last two shows? Any advice you could share with them with your 40 some odd years of being an amateur?
You said it. Listen, enjoy it. I think whether you're chasing DXCC, you're contesting, you're rag chewing, no matter what it is, there's all ages, all different points of view. But I think if you just approach it and just realize that it may seem a little intimidating, it's usually not. And why I say that is when I'm running a contest, I'm sure my station sounds intimidating because I run stacked Yagis. By the way, we didn't talk much about equipment, but as an example, on 15 meters, I have full-size 6-element, long boomed, 6/6/6. So I run phased antennas, and I run kilowatts. So I run power with a lot of gain on those antennas. And when you hear that, I'll have more people say, "Gosh, you're like killing my front end of my receiver." But if you're a contester, what you don't want to do is have anyone challenge to hear you. You want to make sure you're loud on the bands. I know that probably sends chills up a rag chewer's spine, right? Because they don't want it. but it's what you do to optimize your points. But that is not your question. Your question is, where to begin. I'd say jump right in. Find a club that can maybe invite you over to their contest station. We have YCCC in every community. I know there's clubs. Go to a DX club, meet some of the people, go to a Saturday afternoon to their station, watch how they do it, be friendly to them, be respectful, and they'll always let you sit down. I have young people come into my station all the time when I'm running contests. I'll put them in the seat. Why not? I mean, it's a hobby of fun. It should not be a hobby of anything else but fun.
Exactly. And there's some people that can screw up golf. There's people that can screw up softball at church. So there's gonna be bad eggs everywhere, but it doesn't mean you have to be one.
Exactly. And the bad eggs, just walk the other direction. Don't say anything. Try and smile and just move on.
Turn the big knob, man. Turn the big knob.
You got it.
I think we've met a great new friend for the show here with Bruce Jewett, Whiskey One Golf Quebec. Bruce, we appreciate you. It's been 2 times we've had you on. I know that you've got more that you could share with us, and we need to work on the next show to have you back on. Genuinely appreciate you coming on again. Many thanks to George, KJ6VU, for getting us together and having you on here twice. Of course, George wanted to be on today. I gotta say he wanted to be on, but he had to work. So, not everybody has to do that. And with us on the East Coast, we're off early on Friday today. So, we'll be okay. Bruce, thank you again. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been great. And any other topic in and around contests and DXing, I'm all over it. So invite me and I'll participate.
Fantastic. Bruce, thank you again so much. We've enjoyed having you on. And folks, again, his call is Whiskey One Golf Quebec. If you're listening to a contest and you hear a booming station, it may be him. He's got stacked Yankees in his yard. So, Bruce, thanks again. We'll chat with you again soon. And that's going to wind up with Bruce Jewett, Whiskey One Golf Quebec. Man, what a nice guy. I tell you, George just knows all the nice people, does he not? I mean, on top of being one of the nicest individuals you've ever met, George knows all the good guys. Thank you, George. And thank you, Bruce. Whiskey One Golf Quebec. And right off the air, we were talking, man. We're gonna have him back. We're gonna talk about some antennas, some big boomers, and get educated on all things RF. So we'll have Bruce back, I'm sure, man. What a lot of fun. Good 2 shows back to back. Hope you enjoyed them. If you did, we would love to know about it. Now you can comment on the website. You can comment on Facebook, Google+. You can go to iTunes or wherever you listen to the show from, subscribe from. You can leave us a comment there. We've had some great comments so far. Appreciate those, the reviews, as well as our new Twitter and Facebook friends, followers, and all of those adjectives and names there as well. Genuinely appreciate you letting us be a part of your amateur radio hobby. That's what we're doing. We're growing, we're learning with you, and we're having a lot of fun doing it. My name's Kel. My call is K4CDN. Matter of fact, I just got my call tag license plate put on my new van, my new Midlife Crisis, the 12-passenger van, along with my TMV 71A and new Comet antenna installed just a week or so ago. So I'm having a lot of fun playing with the crossband repeat way down here in the country, working really good for me. And all thanks to Richard down there, along with Christy, Tammy, Danielle at mtcradio.com. Great show sponsors. Awesome to be partnering with them and awesome to be here with you. And again, thank you for listening, for allowing me to help you learn as I learn and maybe you got something to teach them as well. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you this week. Until next time, though, guys, we'll chat later. 73, y'all.
Thanks for downloading, listening, and subscribing to AmateurRadio15.com presents Photime, the other ham radio podcast. You can find our past episodes, web links, and more at AmateurRadio15.com. That's AmateurRadio15.com. Follow us on Twitter at Photime Podcast, and remember to visit our show sponsor, Main Trading Company, at mtcradio.com. Till next time, 73s.